Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Couples Academy show. Today, we are actually doing Ask the Experts. We typically do it on Friday, but we missed last Friday, so we wanted to come back to be able to dive in deep and answer the questions that are specific to you, whatever's pertaining to your life. So whether you're dating, in a committed courtship, engaged, married, separated, maybe it's complicated. Maybe you're on the verge of divorce. Hey, maybe you just got a divorce and you're trying to figure out how to pick up the pieces. Whatever your situation is, this is where you want to post your question. Don't wait. Don't be shy. Put it in the chat. So if you're on YouTube, if you're on Facebook, wherever you may be virtually, but wherever you may be from around the world, we want to welcome you here this morning. And before we get started, we want to make sure that you take an opportunity to like, share, and subscribe. Let the people know that we are live. There's so many people in your world, in your community, who are reaching out for help that need a pathway and just don't have one. So let's get started, guys. Post your questions. While you're thinking about what that question is going to be, listen, we're going to go to a quick commercial break. We'll be right back.
Welcome to the Couples Academy app. The Couples Academy app is your go-to hub for how to do marriage right. Get started with our app today by perusing our amazing features that conveniently allow you to connect. This app is packed with powerful content and resources to help you grow and stay connected. With this app, you can watch our messages, find marriage resources, watch, listen, and read the real-life stories of restored couples, sign up for events, read articles and blog posts, stay up to date with push notifications, share your favorite messages via Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or email, and download messages for offline listening. For more information about the Couples Academy app, go to couplesacademy.org.
All right, guys, we're back. You're watching Ask the Experts this morning as we wait for these questions to come through. This weekend, I picked up an amazing book. One of the people that I follow who is just a brilliant guy, his name is Patrick Bet-David. He wrote a business book, a phenomenal book, and it's entitled Choose Your Enemies Wisely, Business Planning for the Audacious Few. And in there, he breaks down so many different concepts that, I look through a marriage lens, I look through a relationship lens. And so he talks about a story between him and his son. And so his son is about 8 years old. And his son says, when I grow up, I will be the number one wrestler in the world. And he says, what did you say, son? He says, I will be the greatest wrestler in the world. He says, let's go for a walk. Let's talk more about it. And so he's all excited. He's all excited that his son has a passion for something because he never heard this in his son. And so after a great conversation, and they're working on battle plans and strategies and how this is going to happen, when it's time for dinner and the son, along with the other siblings and the mom, are sitting down at the table, he says, son, tell the family what you told me earlier. He says, I want to be the best wrestler in the world. And he says, wait a minute, that's not what you said. You did not say that. What did you say? He says, I want to be the best wrestler in the world. He said, no. You said, I will be the best wrestler in the world. Now you're saying, I want to be the best wrestler in the world. And there's a major difference between the two. See, many of us want to have the best relationship that we can have. We want to get over our situations. We want to get to a better place. We want to heal, but there is no will. Will and want are two different things. When you have will, you have purpose. When you have will, you have stick-to-itivism, and you will do whatever it takes. As they say, where there's a will, there is a way. But when you want something, it's more of a passive approach. You're waiting for something to happen. If the circumstances are just right, if the conditions make sense, if all the things line up, if all the ducks are in a row, if everything perfectly presents itself, then yeah, I want that. And so a person who has will could care less about the circumstances. A person who has want is addicted to circumstances and lives his or her life based upon circumstances. Major difference. And so the question is, what is your will? Do you will to be better? Do you will to have more? Do you will to restore your relationship? And if so, what are you willing to do on a scale of 1 to 10? What are you willing to do to get the things that you say that you want? That's the question this morning. Will and want are not the same. And so are you full of will, or are you full of simply want? Now, if you have will, there has to be a balance between two things. Number one, emotion. And number two, logic. See, what happens is, logically in my mind, I could see how it makes sense to still be together. And we can read the books, we can go to the seminars, we can do all the stuff, and we can have the plan in place. In fact, I've got notes and notes and notes and pages and pages and pages of what to do. But because I don't have emotion, the emotion is what drives me. The emotion is what pushes me. The emotion is what helps me to wake up early in the morning and stay up late at night and to work all hours in between. The emotion has me going even when everything looks like it's impossible and it can't be done. I've got to have a strong emotion, because emotions are simply energy in motion. And when I have a heightened energy, it allows me to move in a direction of what it is that I will for my life. Now, some people have all logic and no emotion, but then some people have all the emotion in the world, but they have no logic. They have a desire, they have a passion, they want things to work out, but they don't have the how. They haven't figured it out. They haven't read the book. They haven't gotten the strategy. They haven't gotten the battle plans. They haven't educated themselves. They don't have the tactical, practical, strategic things to implement what it is that they want. There's got to be a balance between the two. And when you have both, you're able to move in a forward direction. When you have both, you go from want to will. What is your will, folks? What is your will? What are you determined to do? Regardless if you have all the facts, regardless if you have all the skills, what are you, like, you've got to want this. See, when it comes to marital restoration, when it comes to getting into a better place, if you take a casual, lackluster approach, you're not going to get what you say that you want. And if you get it, it's going to take a long time in order to get there. There's got to be a sense of urgency that you have. There's got to be a high priority that you place on things. You've got to be willing to sacrifice things. Are you willing to sacrifice your habits? Are you willing to sacrifice what you do with your time? Are you willing to sacrifice whatever's necessary to get the things that you say that you want? If you're that guy that spends, 24 hours watching video games or playing video games and watching TV, scrolling through social media. You work from sun up to sundown, but you say you want a quality relationship. You're doing all the wrong things, but you claim to want all the right things. What are you willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to give up? A sacrifice means I'm willing to give up something now in exchange for something that I want in the future. And so there's a process to this. And so just having a want and a desire is not enough. It's got to be backed up by something that will actually produce for you. And if you're not willing to make the necessary sacrifices, and if you're not willing to balance emotion and logic, if you're not willing to shift from want to will, it's all a pipe dream. And you will see other people surpass you. You will see other people who've been in a dark place get to a much better place because they were the ones who did the necessary work while you sat back in your want. I hope this is helping, folks. Listen, we got a question here. The question is, can we as a couple move forward if there is no forgiveness? Yes and no. Yes, it's possible that you can move forward, but imagine driving a car, okay? Imagine driving a car with the emergency brake on. So you're on the highway. Okay. And what happens is, just as it's illegal to drive too fast, you can get a ticket. It's illegal to drive too slow. You can get a ticket because in each one of those scenarios, you can cause an accident. So not only does it damage your car, you can actually cause an accident to the other passengers on that road. And so, yes, you can slowly move forward, but the emergency brake is on, which is preventing you from driving or riding at a pace of normalcy that is conducive for you, the vehicle, and where you're trying to go. And what we have found is that so many spouses still, after months or years of therapy and counseling, still have not been able to release it and to let it go. They haven't released. See, forgiveness is releasing things. And much like that brake, you've got to release the brake so that you can move. But as long as you hold on to it, as long as you've got that brake on, you'll move forward, but you'll jack your vehicle up. Does that make sense? You will jack your relationship up. Problems will take place in other areas of the relationship because you haven't gotten to a place of forgiveness. Now, forgiveness is one of those things that doesn't just serve to punish the spouse, doesn't just hinder the growth of the relationship, but it can destroy you from within. Most people who have aught and unforgiveness and live in resentment and regret because of something that happens to them, it is a poison that they are drinking internally, and it begins to mess with their insides. In fact, we've talked about this countless times, how the emotions that you carry have the ability of metastasizing into physical form. So when you go to the doctor because something's just not right, you're just not feeling right, you don't know what it is, you did the Google search, you can't try to figure it out. The doctor says, I don't know what this is, it just must be stress. So what happens is emotions create stress in the body. And while I can't pinpoint as a physician what this actually is, and eventually, if it's not dealt with, that stress will show up in physical form in specific areas of your body, whether it be cancer or whatever it may be. We've seen all types of ailments take place, not just because of what we put in our mouths, right? Because oftentimes we eat ourselves to death, but because what we harbor in our hearts, we feel ourselves to death. And we literally die physically. But before we die physically, the relationship dies, the connection dies, right? The chemistry dies. The sex dies. There's a deadness in this relationship because of unforgiveness. And that unforgiveness, one thing about it is, it may be the result of something specific, but it begins to bleed into all areas of your life. It impacts how you show up as a spouse. It impacts how you show up as a parent. It impacts how you show up on your job. It begins to bleed into all areas of your life. And so they say it's like a cancer because it spreads. Wherever it started, it spreads to other parts. Have you ever noticed that? A person who has cancer, oftentimes they have cancer in one area, then it goes dormant, and then boom, it pops up in another area, and you're like, oh my God, this thing is moving around. And that's exactly what unforgiveness is like. In fact, in the book, How to Heal Your Life by Dr. Lewis Hayes, she has every single physical ailment that exists in the body and the corresponding emotion that is connected to that physical issue. And when you look up the word cancer, interestingly enough, the corresponding emotion that is attached to cancer is unforgiveness. So the answer is yes and no. Yes, you can move forward, but how are you moving forward? And no, it can keep you from moving forward, which keeps you in a miserable, miserable place. I hope this is helping, guys, because this is a place where many people find themselves. This is a place where a lot of couples are stuck. And because they haven't really embraced the journey of forgiveness, because forgiveness is not a decision that you made on such and such a date at such and such a time that you could look back and say, yep, it was then. Forgiveness is a posture. It's a disposition. It is an attitude. It is something that you do daily. And just as God gives us new mercies every single morning, that's the same approach that we want to take towards our spouse every single morning. That's why we have to daily renew our minds and cleanse our hearts. God created me a clean heart and renew a right spirit within me. It takes more than just your intellect. It takes more than your emotional capacity. It takes more than your physical strength. You are going to have to rely on someone better and greater than yourself to get you through this. This is where the spiritual component takes place. And for those of you who go to church, who think going to church is enough, for those of you who read scripture every now and then and think reading the scripture is enough, it is not. If going to church was enough, if reading scripture was enough, we would have a healed land. We would be in a prosperous, emotionally, sexually, relationally, financially prosperous reality. All of us, if it was just about going to church. That's a religious act. You understand? But what we're talking about is relationship with God. Because if we have true relationship, and our desire is to please God, then that means that oneness, that connection, that intimacy changes us from the inside out. See, the Bible says, what can light and darkness have in common? What can good and evil have in common? Nothing. They can't even dwell in the same space. So as we get closer to God, he begins to reveal our issues, our idiosyncrasies, our challenges, our faults, our flaws, our sins, our baggage. And in order to stay in his presence, we've got to cleanse ourselves, cleanse our minds, cleanse our hearts. We have to step into a space of righteousness, not just when we're in his presence, but if he's in us, his presence is always within us. And so wherever we go, he's there. When we're engaging with our spouse, he's there. So I can't show up as a devil with my spouse and show up as an angel with God, because he sees and knows all things. So we've got to get to a place where we're not just doing religion, but we're really diving deep into a spiritual exchange that cleanses us and purifies us from the inside out, so we show up different in our lives, in our marriages, in our families, in our world. Hope this is helping. Daryl, hope that gave you an answer. All right, we have another question. Good morning, Asani. My husband makes no effort to work on our 30-year marriage to rebuild trust. I will have to peace. Does that mean leave? What is your advice for planning a future without your spouse? Well, unfortunately, you do have situations where one spouse is willing, one spouse is not. One spouse has all the motivation, the other spouse does not. And it's damaging to the relationship. So the question is, what is my advice? I'm going to read that again. What is my advice for planning a future without your spouse? My advice would be to exhaust all possibilities before you have to do that. You know, my question would be, in this 30-year period of time, what has been done? What steps have you taken? Have you attempted to get counseling? Have you gone to a seminar? Have you read a book together? Have you taken a class? Have you done anything that did not keep you in the driver's seat or keep him in the driver's seat? Because when you're attempting to do it on your own, even with the best of intentions, it doesn't produce the same results as when you both submit to someone else's expertise, knowledge, and skill to guide you through a process. Now, I don't know your situation. I don't know if the threat of divorce has ever come up. But one thing I know for sure is that men and women typically are motivated by different things, and men in particular are motivated by the fear of loss. When they truly believe, without a shadow of a doubt, that there's a great possibility that their spouse may actually leave, they're willing to do what they were never previously willing to do because they don't want the marriage to end. See, they haven't prioritized the relationship. Oh, but they prioritize that marriage because the marriage represents a lifestyle. The marriage represents a sense of stability. You know, my home is attached to this marriage. Our assets and finances are attached to this marriage. My kids, I love my kids, attached to this marriage. We have friends. You know, we have friends, a couple friends for a long time, attached to this marriage. Our community, attached to this marriage. Our church, attached to this marriage. My reputation is attached to this marriage. And so detaching myself from you detaches me from all of those other things. And my need to maintain these things, possibly, drives me to want to do anything to save this marriage. Now, interestingly enough, most women are focused on the relationship. The relationship represents the connection. The relationship represents the intimacy, the ability to effectively communicate, spending a life together, sharing memories together. It's the closeness. That's what they're focused on. Men typically, who aren't willing to do the necessary work, aren't focused on the relationship. They're just focused on the marriage. So we both want two different things, but in order to keep the marriage, we've got to restore the relationship. See, that's the key. And if we begin to work on this relationship, it creates a sense of security in this marriage. And so I'm asking the question, have you two done all that you can do? Have you exhausted all means? If you have, and if there's still no repentant attitude and behavior, if there's still no will coming from your spouse, then I would advise you to reach out to us, because I don't think that this planning should be done on your own. I would encourage you to allow us to guide you through a process, because what I have discovered, and I'm not talking about you, sis, but what I have discovered is that when most people are driven to leave, when we really dig deep down into it, they really didn't do all that they could do. See, for us, Couples Academy, divorce is a reality. Not everybody stays together. We're aware of that. But divorce should be the absolute last option, not the first, not the second, not the third, but the last. And if it's truly the last option, then that means that we would have what? Sought out every possibility to restore this thing called marriage. All right, we got more questions. Stress in a relationship is tiring and exhausting, which renders you ineffective. Very true. Radiant Jewels by Rio. I'm headed to divorce court today with a man I have been married to 30 years. I have had breast cancer and a brain aneurysm. We both still love one another, but he won't talk to me. I'm so perplexed. What can I do? Now, did you hear this? Married 30 years. They still love each other, but he won't talk to her. Headed to divorce court today. What should she do? You know what's interesting? Overwhelmingly, many people who get divorced still love each other. But love is not enough. Love, unfortunately, is not enough. It initiates a relationship, but it's not necessarily enough to maintain a relationship, because though it is a major ingredient, it requires more. When most people are headed to divorce, they're headed to divorce out of desperation. Because to be quite honest, they don't know what more to do. They've tried everything, so they think. It really exposes one's inability to effectively resolve conflict. And so I know, because I've had many conversations with people on the other side, that the pain that they carry before the divorce is the pain that they carried after, and it was a deeper pain. It was a double pain, because not only did we carry the pain of what we endured in the relationship, but now we carry another pain of isolation, another pain of abandonment, another pain of rejection, another pain of I just don't know what to do anymore. It's a double pain. It's a triple pain. It's a quadruple pain. And that pain doesn't go away overnight. Statistics have shown that it takes upwards of 5 years to get past the pain of that betrayal. I remember when Danielle and I had our church, one of our members was a physician, and he literally did a presentation that blew our minds. He said, whenever a divorce occurs, there's literally a permanent, you ever heard the term, man, you just broke my heart? Well, literally there's a permanent scarring that takes place on the actual heart that you can see with a specific tool, a specific lens. There is a break, there is a tear, and it never goes away. It's permanently there. Now, the emotion attached to the divorce may over the course of time change, but the permanent scarring on the actual heart is a real thing. If I were on my way to that divorce court and I knew that I loved my husband and my husband loved me, but we're just in a funk, I would do my all to see if we can turn this thing around. Because the truth of the matter is, don't let the devil lie to you. It ain't over till it's over. It is not over till that judge hits the gavel on that table. Until that time, there's still an opportunity to turn things around. Don't you know that we've had so many people who have come to us for help after they filed papers? We've had so many people come to us for help when they were literally days away from the actual court date. All it requires is putting in a request to halt the process, and they will gladly do it. If it costs you money, pay it. Whatever's required, do it. Having a conversation with your spouse before you get into that courtroom, I would highly recommend it. If you have to speak between attorneys, if you have representation, whatever's necessary to turn this thing around, make it happen. You do not have to become a statistic. You do not have to live in regret. You do not have to be in this place. When you put that thing to a halt, you need to reach out to us immediately so that we can serve you the way that you need to be served. All right, let's go to the next question. My spouse of 30 years was having a 10 years of secret casual conversations with a woman I befriended and who visited our home on a weekly basis, and neither of them want to admit the emotional affairs. I'm sorry, I thought there was a continuation. Okay, it stops there. Okay, that's a problem. You know, interestingly enough, many people, for whatever reason, think that an affair, the definition of an affair is penis and vagina. And anything outside of my penis in another person's vagina does not constitute as an affair. And so most people are ignorant on what betrayals are and the damaging effects of these type of betrayals. And as we discovered a few weeks ago, that there's 3 types of betrayals, right? The 3 most powerful, actually it was last week, the 3 most powerful betrayals or damaging betrayals: the emotional betrayal, 1, the physical betrayal, 2, or the hybrid betrayal, 3, which is a combination or a fusion between the emotional and the physical. Right? Those are the hardest ones to overcome. So right now, let's assume what you're saying is correct. It has been an emotional betrayal. Secret conversations, text messages, phone calls, Morse code, letter, who knows, whatever it was. And so it's really about educating the spouse on the damage that it's caused. I mean, he obviously sees the damage that it's caused because he has a front row seat to your life. He sees the impact that it's had on the marriage, but he's minimized his actions. This is where a level of awareness comes in so that there could be an aha moment. But that relationship has to be severed. It has to end. And I don't know what you have done, or I don't know what he has done to put an end to the relationship, or if it still exists, but something needs to be done. And you need insight in terms of how to begin to do that. Now, can you recover from a 10-year emotional affair? Yes, all things are possible. With God, all things are possible. But there's got to be two willing participants in the process. Okay? So I don't know if he's still engaged, if it's over, what the circumstances are, but if there's any way that we can serve you, please let us know and we will be there for you. I think this is the next question. As the betrayed, I feel my identity as a stay-at-home mom is a mistake. Seeking independence, finding a job, and identify outside our home. I want to stay married, but need something outside our home now. Okay. I'm going to read this again. As the betrayed, I feel my identity as a stay-at-home mom is a mistake. Okay, so I would love to understand how you're corresponding the two. I'm not sure the connection that you're making, but what I will say is that when we talk about the dangerous partner profile, right? There's many components to the dangerous partner profile. One of the components happens to be what we call personality styles, and then the other is attachment patterns. So for instance, a person who cheats on their spouse may do so because they find another type of a person attractive. So for instance, and the example is often mentioned, my wife was a stay-at-home mom, as an example. And I found myself strongly attracted to a woman who happened to be an entrepreneur. She had a business mind. She had hustle. She had drive. She had tenacity. And I loved the way that she would wheel and deal and negotiate and close deals. I found that attractive. And though I married my wife and wanted someone who would raise our children and take care of our home, because that's what I saw growing up with my mom. So I married someone like my mom. I was drawn and attracted to this particular personality type that I found in another woman. And so what happens is when we begin to live our lives by comparison, we say, wow, so that's what you want? So that's what you're all about? That's what you're pursuing? And I'm not saying this is you, sis, at all, so don't take it that way. But what happens is if I find out that that's what you're attracted to, then I begin to question my own identity, my own role, my own significance, and I discover that I want something more. Either A, I want to keep your attraction, so I'll be what it is that drove you away, or B, I've lost the lease. I've lost my lease for life in this particular space, and I realize that I'm in an identity crisis. And you know what? This way, what I've been doing all along really hasn't been working for me. I've served others. I want something different for myself. So I'm going to now pursue something different. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's all types of people who find new passion, new desires, new forms of identity that are healthy. So if that's what you feel you need to do, if that helps you to become the best version of yourself, if you can then be a better mother and wife and things of that nature because you find excitement and thrill in a career and you're able to bring an income to support your household, nothing wrong with that. I'm just trying to understand the tie to the affair. Now, if your husband's reason was what he found in another person that you don't have, and now you want to become that, now that's a whole nother conversation. I see how you're making that tie if you're doing that. But that's not always the healthy thing to do, right? So I can't, it will require me to really understand a little bit more where this is coming from so I could properly address it. But those are the thoughts that I have off the top. But let's just see how we can further help you. Reach out to us. Tiffany says, why do spouses wait until it's almost too late to try and repair the marriage? I've been asking myself that question forever, Tiffany. I don't get it. Well, all I could say is that I was once there. So when things got worse, and I mean bad, it was only out of a place of desperation and I'm about to lose everything that all of a sudden I had the wake-up call, right? I'm going to jack this quote up, but there was a quote that I came across years ago, and it says that men wake up in the face of disease, in the face of divorce, in the face of death. That oftentimes, and I don't want to say that men monopolize this, but oftentimes humans, but more often men, we wake up in the midst of crisis. Why is that? I still don't know. I don't know why I did not pay attention to all of her complaints along the way. Why I wasn't willing to get help along the way. Maybe along the way I thought we could figure this out on our own. Why do we need to go to someone for help? Let's read a book. Let's go to a class. Let's do a workshop. Let's do a retreat. But I'm not sitting down in front of no man, having him tell, or a woman, having her tell me how I need to run my home and live my life. No, I ain't doing that. So there's a natural internal resistance based upon our psychology that says that we are not just the decision makers, but we're the problem solvers. And so by us sitting down, submitting to the wisdom of someone else, is a shot to our ego, because it says that, man, we weren't able to figure it out. And so it attacks our manhood. So men figure things out. Males who have to go to counseling aren't proving themselves to be men because they haven't figured it out. See the warped thinking? And so a lot of times that may be a contributing factor. The other time, many of the other times, I've heard so many men say, I just never thought that she was going to leave. I just never thought, I always assumed she would stay. So no matter how much she's hurting, no matter how much she's crying, no matter how much her heart is bleeding, no matter how horrible our relationship is, I never thought she would leave. Come on, bruh. So unfortunately, men shift into gears and do whatever it takes when they realize it's almost over. Now, let me say this. Because they take so long to finally show up, what I don't want you to do is to question, is it genuine or sincere? In many respects, it's extremely genuine and sincere. But it took forever for us to realize how bad things were. So many men, because we work with them, legitimately make permanent change. But it took crisis to get them to that point. All right. Radiant, this is a continuation from what she said earlier. He basically abandoned me 2 years ago. No financial or emotional support. I waited for a year before I filed. Our adult kids and grandbabies are devastated. Thank you so much. Well, yeah. So now what's the question again? Should you? Oh, you're headed for divorce. Listen. I get it. It's not what we would desire. It's not what we wish for. We wish that things could turn around. We wish that both parties would be on the same page. Listen, check this out. I went to a Christmas concert last night, and I met a gentleman for the first time. He said, you know what? I think I know you. About a year ago, I actually reached out to you. My wife and I were going through tough times, and we sought you out to get some help for our marriage. And man, when we did that discovery call, I was sold. But my wife, she wanted to go in another direction. And as a result, we're divorced today. And I said, man, another one bites the dust. And so oftentimes couples aren't on the same page because they have spent their entire marriage agreeing to disagree. So when it's time to come together and get into alignment and to make a decision and agree on something, they find it almost impossible to do. They can't do it. That becomes the problem. And so our hope is that couples can get into alignment and figure things out and change their relationship. That's what we're here for. And so if there's any possible change of heart to want to work on the relationship and do something different, please let us know. But if it seems like you're going to wind up getting a divorce today, I want to pray for you. And please let us know, because there's still a healing process that you individually have to go through. All right, Tiffany, again, please keep fighting. I wouldn't recommend it on my worst enemy. My ex-husband wouldn't try. Keep praying and keep fighting. I love it. I love it, Tiffany. Thank you so much for sharing that. And that's what I love about this community. They will communicate with each other to give each other hope and inspiration. Ben, both sides need to be willing to change. Anything, not anything, but anything. Be willing to be introspective to your role in the failure. He goes on to say, both spouses need to learn and identify their spouse's needs and learn how to meet them, both spouses. Thank you for sharing that, Ben, because it's true. Now, we'll end this by saying, because we're almost 40 minutes in, you know what happens a lot of times? Because I'm the one who cheated on you, the spotlight's on me. Right? What I need to do, what I need to change, what I need to fix, how I need to repair myself, how I need to get it together, how I'm broken, how I'm no good, how I'm evil, how I'm sinister, how I need to get my life. But you, No, there's no focus on you because you're not the reason why we're here. I am. And so what happens is there is this huge mistake in believing that I am 100% responsible for where our marriage is when that may not be the case. I may be 100% responsible for the betrayal, my decision to cheat, but there were factors. Okay, we talked about the personal factors, the relational factors, and the social factors that contributed to this perfect storm for an affair to occur. But if we're honest, the relationship wasn't in a good place. There were issues, there were problems, there were struggles, there were things that you were doing. There were things that I was doing. So if we're making a decision to stay together and work this thing out, once we deal with the affair issues, we got to now deal with the marital issues. Because in this marriage, there was a whole lot of stuff that was wrong. And if I focus on me, then you got to make a decision to focus on you. You can't focus on me while I'm focusing on me, because who's focusing on you? You ain't, and I'm not. You see? And so if I become whole and complete and healed, and I become the best version of myself now, because my focus has been on me, and your focus has certainly been on me, and nobody's focus has been on you, you will remain broken. You will remain in a hurt place. And even when I show up and do the right thing and prove myself to be worthy, and now I'm trustworthy, and now I'm doing all the necessary things, you can't receive it because you're still in a broken place. Right? And you haven't taken accountability for your actions, for how you've shown up, for your idiosyncrasies, faults, and flaws, for your stuff. And we all came into this marriage with stuff. We all came into this marriage with baggage. And so now the question is, what are you going to do to turn this situation around? I know what I need to do, but if we're not both willing participants in this process, this journey to recovery becomes a lot slower. But once we get on the same page, all things are subject to change. And so, guys, I hope that this was helpful today. I hope it gave you some insight. Man, we went 41 minutes strong. Maybe we should continue this because there's issues that you guys have that we need to dive deeper into. Listen, this Saturday, we are doing a 4-hour masterclass. Go to the website. Follow us on Instagram. Right? Follow us on Facebook. You'll see that we have a 4-hour masterclass called Together We Stand. And it's all about how to have effective communication within your marriage to overcome the issues that you're currently struggling with. So if you haven't signed up, it is $97. It is going to be amazing. Not only are we going to teach you, we're going to have experiential learning, exercises, handouts, worksheets, the tools that many people are looking for to change and transform their life. So if you haven't registered, go to the website and do that today. Love you guys. See you on tomorrow for another great episode. You're watching the Couples Academy Show. My name is Hassani Pettiford.